Here are the notes for 5-1. Assuming you already know direct variation from Algebra 1, they're going to talk about inverse variation and joint variation. So just to review, you may need to add this into your notes. Direct variation is when y equals a times x, where a is not equal to 0. Otherwise, you would have no x value. Okay? Inverse. So two variables, x and y, show inverse variation if they are related as follows. Y equals a divided by x. So direct was multiplication. Inverse is the opposite of multiplication, division. Again, a cannot equal 0. We call a the constant of variation. And y is said to vary inversely with x. In this first section, we're just going to classify as direct or inverse or neither. Okay? So, first things first, we need to solve for y. In a, to get y by itself, divide both sides by x. So I have y equals 7 divided by x. Since I'm dividing 7 divided by x, this is inverse variation. All right. In b, it's already in the y equals, ax form, but it has this plus 3. There's nothing in direct variation that has addition. There's nothing in inverse variation that has an addition. So this one is neither. In C, we have to solve for y. So right now on the left-hand side, we have y divided by 4. To get y by itself, multiply both sides by 4. So you end up with y equals 4 times x. This is multiplication, which means it is direct variation. Go ahead and pause the video and try A, B, C, and I will put the answers here so that you can check your answers. So, as you can see in A, y is already alone, so it's, and you just have 3 times x on the other side, so it's direct variation. In B, we have to divide both sides by x, so y equals 0.75 divided by x, therefore it's inverse variation. In C, we have x, but then we have a minus 5. Nothing has addition or subtraction, so that one's neither. Moving on to the in this section, they tell us the variables x and y vary inversely. So that means the general equation we're going to use is y equals a divided by x. Then they give me some values. They say y is 7, x is 4. Substitute your values and solve for a. So in this equation, I'm going to put in 7 for y. I don't know a. I'm going to plug in 4 for x. That's what they told me right here. To solve for a, multiply both sides by 4. A equals 28. Okay? Then the next step, I guess we can just call it B, write an equation that relates x and y. So I'm going to use this new value I found and this general equation, and I have y equals a is 28 over x. Okay? Then they say find y when x is 2. So if I use that equation, then I'm plugging in 28, and they say divide by 2. Well, then y equals 14. All right, the next section we're going to do the same thing. So they still vary inversely. So y equals a divided by x. here they give me x is 4, y is 3. So I'm going to plug that in and solve for a. So multiply both sides by 4, and you get a equals 12. Once I have a, I need to write my equation. Y equals 12 divided by x. Then the last step, we're going to use the same thing as the example. Find y when x is 2. So 12, and then I'm going to plug in 2 for x. So y equals 6. Go ahead and pause the video and do B and C. Then resume to check your answer. So here you can see in B, I use the same formula, y equals a over x. I plugged in -1 for y, plugged in 8 for x, multiplied both sides by 8, and then a was -8. Once I have that, I plug it into my formula, y equals -8 over x, plug in 2 for x, y equals -4. This one, plug in 12 for y, plug in 1/2 for x, solve for a, write your equation, plug in 2 for x, y is 3. Let's move on to joint variation. Joint variation is similar to direct variation, but now you're going to have other letters joining ax on that side. So it's still multiplication, but now instead of just having ax, y has joined them. So joint variation. This one, you have 3 things joined together with a. That's fine. Here I only have 2. It's still just joint. We don't have any other special name for it. So let's read the problem. The variable z varies jointly with x and y. So z varies. The general equation for that then, for step 1 here, is going to be z equals a and then x, y. Step 2 is still the same. Substitute, simplify, solve for a. So what do they give us? They give us z is -75. Oops. 75. A, and then x is 3. Y is -5. Solve for a. So this is 3 times -5 is -15. Right? Divide by -15. A equals 5. Once you have a, rewrite your equation with that value. So up here, this equation now becomes z equals 5x, y. And then last step says evaluate. So what am I evaluating? It says find z when x is 2 and y is 6. So that gives me 5 times 2 is 10 times 6, 60. Okay? So now there's some for you to try. I'll do A with you and then pause the video and check your answers to B and C. The variable z varies jointly with x and y. So we're still going to use z equals axy for all of the problems below, A, B, and C. Use the given values. So right here they're telling me x is 1, y is 2, z is 7. So 7, A, 1, 2. So then we got to find our A. So 1 times 2 is 2. Divide both sides by 2. A equals 7 over 2. Once I have A, I go on to step 3. Rewrite the equation, right? So now I have z equals 7/2 xy. Okay? And then the last step is to evaluate. So it says then find z when x equals -2 and y equals 5. So if you plug in -2 for x and 5 for y, you get z equals -35. Pause the video, do B and C, then resume to check your answer. So in B, once you plug in 24 equals A times 4 times -3, 24 equals -12, 24 divided by -12, A equals -2. Then I wrote my general equation, or my particular equation. Then I plugged in -2 for x and 5 for y. My final answer is z equals 20. In C, plugged in 18, so 18 equals A, -2 times 6. Well, -2 times 6 is -12. -18 divided by -12 is -3/2. Then you plug in your -2 for x, your 5 for y, and I got z equals 15. The hardest part of this whole section a lot of students have is going from the words to the equation. So the last thing we're going to do is just practice writing the equation. So if we look at the first one, y varies. When I see that part, I want you to write y equals. Then I see this key word, inversely. That means A divided by whatever comes next, which in this case is the square of x. So that's x squared. Okay? So if I write it on the line as a ratio like our other ones, it's y over x squared. You may be able to jump right to that. Great. If not, step by step. In B, z varies directly. So that means z equals. Directly means A times, well, what comes next? Y. Keep reading because it says and inversely, which means divided by. And then now what comes next? X. So this is going to be z equals A times y divided by x. This one is not x squared. It just says x, right? In C, x varies. So x equals jointly. So I know that's going to be A, and then it's going to be times a couple of things this time, right? So this time it's times t r, and inversely, there's that word inversely again, which means divided by, and this time s. So how do I write this? X equals A T R over S. Try the next two. Pause the video and try them. I'll continue. X varies inversely. So x equals A divided by y. And directly. So directly means multiplied by w. So if I write that, x equals A divided by y, and then times w. You can leave it like this, or you could rewrite it as AW over y. Moving on to the last one. P varies jointly. So P equals, jointly I know I'm going to have A with at least two other letters, so A times QR, and inversely. Well, inversely means divided by S. So P equals AQR all over S. Okay? Homework is on the portal. It's page 307, numbers 3 to 19 every 3, and 24 to 34 every 3. You can get started on this.